Okay, let's start. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maurizio Cocchi, and on behalf of ETA Florence, I'm happy to welcome you at this webinar titled Farming for Biobased Materials and Biodiversity, Unlocking the Potential for Europe's Marginal Land. So we'll give you a first very quick introduction, and we will jump immediately to the agenda. First of all, I'm an agronomist and I represent ETA Florence, a consultants and engineering firm based in Florence, working in renewable energy and green technologies. And we are organizers of this webinar as part of our activities in the Horizon Europe project MIDAS. This project is now in its third year of life, and it's about revitalizing marginal lands through the building bio-based value chains with the use of industrial crops. And we will hear today about the issue of marginal lands across Europe. We will hear about innovative cropping systems and industrial crops and how they can be used to produce a wide range of bio-based products, and especially how this can be used to revitalize and to recover this marginal land across Europe, also with positive outcomes relative to biodiversity in these agroecosystems. So we will have 3 presentations from project partners, followed by a discussion with a panel of experts. And you can also make questions in the question and answers panel that you can find in the platform. The webinar is recorded, and the recording will be available after the webinar in a few days, probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, together with the slides on the MIDAS website, and it will be shared also via email for those who have registered. This is the first of a series of webinars. Our second webinar will be on the 12th of November, and it will be about guaiuli, one of the plants, the crops that we're studying on marginal land in Spain. And I will come back to that later. So without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker, Berin Elbersen from Wageningen University in the Netherlands, which will introduce the macro aspect of marginal land and the challenge of marginal land in Europe. So Berin, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Maurizio. I'll share my screen.
We can see it. Just put it in full mode.
Yes.
Yes, you can go.
Okay. Yes, so I'm going to present the identification of marginal land in the EU. And for this, we have to make clear that we already mapped marginal lands in the MAGIC project, and we took that further in the MIDAS project, where we improved the work that we did before. And in MIDAS, we also mapped marginal lands for the future, for 2050, taking account of climate change. So the focus is on marginal lands, and what we mean with that is that they are constrained by biophysical, so climatic and soil limitations, which makes conventional agricultural use challenging, and these lands also have a chance to become abandoned or degraded. So if we further define these marginal lands, as we do in MIDAS. So these marginal lands are having limitations, which in aggregate are severe for sustained application of a given use. So in this case, agriculture. So increased inputs to maintain their productivity or benefits will be only marginally justified. So these lands have limited options to diversification without the use of inputs and with inappropriate management, they risk degradation. It is important to realize that we are mapping marginal lands basically in an agricultural land use mask. This land use mask is a historic mask, so it means that between 1990 and 2012, these lands were sometimes in agricultural use. So it could be that they were in the meantime abandoned. So the mask that we apply is quite broad. So that is just to keep in mind. So how did we identify these marginal lands? So we identified 18 single limitation factors, and we grouped them in 6 clusters of limitations. And these are adverse climate, excessive wetness, low soil fertility, adverse chemical conditions, poor rooting conditions, and adverse terrain conditions. And it is important to realize that this is not starting from scratch, but this is really building on the work of the Joint Research Center on identifying areas of natural constraints. And areas of natural constraints are really, in the Common Agricultural Policy, a category of land that has acknowledged limitations, and for that farmers are also in a position, provided the lands, the countries decide to target areas of natural constraints, so the farmers can get compensation for the natural constraints that they're having on these lands. And so we elaborated the identification of that, also taking inputs from other evaluation systems, and we came to these 18 single factors. And we were the ones that mapped marginal lands for the whole of Europe. But it could be that some countries already mapped their marginal lands only for their country because they target cap payments to it. What we also did is identifying the marginal lands, but we excluded lands that were improved by certain measures, such as irrigation. So you can have marginal lands where drought is really severe drought is a problem, but if there's irrigation on it, so it's actually high productive land, then we have excluded it from our maps. Okay, so now I go to showing the results, so the intermediate results. What I have to mention is for the 2050 situation, we used climate change scenarios. We used the SSP 585, so that is a quite severe climate change scenario. Now I show just for not all the 6 clusters, but for selection of the most important clusters of limitations, how it works. So for adverse climate, you can have dryness as a problem, but also a temperature. And here you see the intermediate results for that. For low soil fertility, there are 2 factors. The one is reaction. It's an indicator for the availability of nutrients. And low carbon, so organic carbon. And you see the distribution over EU of these severely limited areas. Limitations in rooting, that's quite a big class, and you also see that it leads to a large area of marginal lands. And that is determined by 5 factors. That could be unfavorable soil structure, texture, coarse fragments, organic soils, very strong organic soils, surface stones and rocks, and shallow rooting depth. And then the other very influential limitation is adverse terrain, and that is determined by either slopes with severe slopes of more than 15%, and also by flooding risk. And flooding risk means that it is flooded a large part of the year. And what you will also notice is that we have severe is marginal, but we also identified sub-severe classes, because sometimes if you have two sub-severe situations, then together they are still severe. But it could also work out the other way around. So that if factors occur in combination, that one factor actually compensates and improves the situation for the other factor. So all these combinations are also taken into account. So this is then the result for 2020, the updated MIDAS marginal land map, and that shows that of the area mass, 32% is marginal. And the most dominant marginal factors are routing, wetness, and climate, which I showed. And countries with the largest marginal land area are Finland, Sweden, Ireland, Estonia, Spain, and UK. And areas with relatively limited marginal lands are Belgium, Czech Republic, Luxembourg, Bulgaria, Netherlands, and also France. Okay, now I move to the marginal lands in 2050. I show here that especially climate, of course, is the cluster. Climate is, of course, very much changing under influence of climate change, and excessive wetness. The adverse chemical conditions, they only change through pairwise combinations. So there where you have, for example, a chemical condition in combination with dryness, and that changes under influence of climate change. And also for loss of fertility, there's only a pairwise combination effect, while the limitations in routing and adverse terrain conditions do not really change under influence of climate. So, okay, this is the result then for 2050, comparing the 2020 marginal land condition and 2050. And what you see is that in certain countries, actually, the marginal land goes down, the marginal land area. So, for example, in Sweden, so Germany, Finland has a large decrease, UK also, but more the southern countries show an increase in marginal land, which is, of course, expected given the effect of climate change. So if you compare that, then overall you see a very small absolute decrease. And that is as compared to 2020 situation. You see Scandinavia, the Atlantic and Alpine area, they have a decreasing marginal land area because basically the growing season is increasing. So for agriculture, it is improving generally. And in the Mediterranean, it's the opposite. And there you see a 6.6% increase in marginal land. Yes, and then the conclusion is that most of the marginal lands are in agricultural use. People have to realize that. We're not talking about abandoned land. And the other aspect is that we are now characterizing the marginal lands further in terms of ecosystem services. And these determine where MIDAS cropping systems can maybe strengthen the ecosystem service, but it also indicates where MIDAS cropping systems should not be placed. And that's the next steps that we are taking. Thank you.
Thank you, Beren. Thank you for this very good introduction and for the perfect timing. It's actually perfect. I see there are some questions in the chat room, but first I would like to explain, maybe you can explain a bit about the more in-depth local, regional assessments that you're doing, because these are results that are not available. What you have presented today is the, let's say, the macro picture at the continental scale, but there are a lot of other activities ongoing to fine-tune your assessments also at local scale, in local conditions. And also, I think you are also addressing the suitability of crops in those marginal lands. These results are not available yet, but can you say a few words about this? Because a lot of the farmers many times say, we have these maps of Europe with different conditions. How do we use this information in our local context? And in fact, this is something that you're doing.
Yes, I only have limited time, but indeed we are mapping the suitability of crops for 2020 and 2050. So you see a change in the suitability in relation to climatic factors under influence of climate change. And we are mapping that per crop. And if we will talk about the crops, for example, you let's take sorghum, biomass sorghum. There you see, for example, that the suitability, the area suitable to grow sorghum is really strongly increasing under influence of climate change, specifically to the east and the north of Europe. But you also see that actually the water deficits will increase towards the south. So that is actually making the production of crops challenging, particularly in the southwest of Europe. And there you see that you have to search for other solutions or another crop mix. For example, choosing camelina that can cope with very little water, or growing that specific crop in winter instead of a summer season. So all that information will also be produced from our project.
Good. And thank you, Berin. Thank you. And by the way, the mapping that you've seen shown in the pictures in the slides from Berin is also available on the MIDAS project website. So you can find a story map with some of these mappings. And so the key takeaway is that we, especially for the south and the regions in the south of Europe, we really need to act and implement and find solutions to cope with this expected increase of marginal land due to dry conditions and reduction of soil organic content. And we need new innovative cropping systems and alternative crops. And this is also the topic of our next presentation, where Effie Alexopoulos, the coordinator of this project, will introduce a bit about the project and about our case studies. Effie, the floor is yours. Meanwhile, I will share the screen.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. I would like to thank you for the great preparation of the webinar, also the presenters and the participants in this first series of our webinar in MIDAS. I will present very briefly what MIDAS is, with emphasis on our field case studies. As you can see, we have many, and you can see which crops we have selected to work the last 3 years. Actually, this month, it will be the 36th month of the project, and we are going to finish by the end of October 2026. So if we move to the next slides, you will see what was the main aim of the project. Keep in mind that this proposal was submitted in a topic that 2 projects has been selected for funding. One it was MIDAS, and the next one is Marginal that you have the possibility to see later on. In any case, MIDAS was to work on selected industrial crops on marginal land, and we want to optimize optimize the crops, to work on their biodiversity, on specific case studies, and moreover to develop very valuable chains where we're going to produce a high number of bio-based products. So it was mainly two pillars. If we move to the next, in the next slide, you will see more or less what is the main meaning of MIDAS. You will see all the elements. Berian just presented the work that is being done on mapping of the marginal land. And apart from this, we have the optimization of the selected crops. So there we go through breeding or agronomy. We have the case study, the field case study with the selected crops. We have the products. In work package 5, we have the value chains and sorry, one moment, please. So we have the value chains, and of course, we have the sustainability, the policy, and of course, the business plan with the farmers. You can see in this slide the main figures that this project is going to bring, how many case studies, how many projects, and of course, we are working on a large number of countries in Europe. If we move to the next, I will not stay on this just before you just saw from Berian, just to let you know that from this MIDAS, built on the previous work by Berian and her team on the marginal land, and we started from here that initially the marginal area was 29% of the agricultural area, and you just see what it was measured in MIDAS project. The projection is looking that in the South Europe the things are going to be worse in terms of climate change. If we move to the next, then you will see that, as I told you, we try to work on the optimization of the crops. You will see later on which are the crops, and to develop specific case study that all of them were developed in good collaboration with the farming society, because one critical parameter is the farmers to accept how they can make profit from the marginal land, because it's not so easy to grow on this kind of areas. If we move to the next, you will see or the field trials. As I told you, we have many countries all over Europe try the majority of the climatic conditions. In the project we promised, let's say 16, we have more than 16, and we split it to intercropping and agroforestry. So apart that we selected a certain number of crops, we are working on strip intercropping. If we move to the next, you will see in the graph, here, it's okay there. I told you before that the case study is a central point of our project. Why? Because they give information to all the other work packages. We are going to take a lot of information for biodiversity from the yields, the feedstock for the products, the policy, the business plan, everything is connected with this. And apart that this work package 3 is very important for us, all of the case study, as I told you before, they connected with a farming group that they follow us since the beginning of the project. So in all the countries, we have set these groups that we meet annually. Let's move to the next to see the layout. Here I mentioned before that we selected specific crops. These crops can be categorized in 3 groups: oilseeds, lignocellulosic, and dryland straps. In the first, we have 4 crops: castor, crambe, safflower carinata. In the second, we have woody species, perennial grasses, and fibers. And in the last one, we have guayule and lavender. All of these crops selected due to previous experience. We have a reason for this, and for all of them, we want to produce specific products. You saw in this graph. Let's move to the next. I told you before that we're working on strip intercropping. So we don't go row by row, but we have strips. So in the same field, we have some strips occupied by perennial crops, grasses, or woody species, or perennial shrubs, and in between, we rotate a certain number of annual crops. Usually, the majority of the case study, they rotate 3 annual crops. We started, this is the third year, and we're going to do 1 more year. Let's move to the next to see more or less what the partner selected to do. So initially, we had a certain number of crops to work in certain specific case study. But as I told you, we're working with the farmers and we hear from the farmers, and our case study were built because of this. So we have 6 case study that the perennial crop is 1 grass, miscanthus, that is very important for Europe. Miscanthus, you can find many works everywhere, and you can see in each one which are the selected annual crops. Ideally, we had to include 3 and 3 every year to rotate. So by the end of this year, we can say that we have a full set of data because we have also the rotation in between the perennial. Let's move to the next. In the next set, we have two trials in Italy. Both of them, they have 1 common crop, and it was cardoon. One was organized by Novamont and the second one by Catania University. You can see also figures. In the first case, the 2 annual were castor bean and sunflower, while in the second we have 3 annual. Let's move to the next. In the next, we have a crop that is very valuable for Europe and is going to be valuable in the future, Guayuli, a perennial shrub that can be grown in the Mediterranean area only. And it's the only crop that can replace the Havea tree that usually import from Asia. And here you can see some graphs, some photos from the field trials established in the central of Spain and in France. In the next slide, you can see that we have another important shrub, perennial crop is lavender, and we have 2 case studies, one in Spain, one in Greece, and in Spain especially is connected with many end products. Let's move to the next. As I told you that apart from the herbaceous crop, we have the woody species and agroforestry. We have here agroforestry trial in the form of the strip intercropping, and we have the common crop, it is poplar, and several trials, one in Italy, Poland, Greece, and Hungary. The next one, I just give you an idea how many trials have already been established. If we go to the next, you can see another common crop. Here you can see all together. So 13 sites, it's more than 13 sites. Actually, it was initially decided to be 13. Now we have more than 19. Initially, we promised to be 10 crops, but gradually we added some more, like Melilotus, for instance, like Siberian elm, Paulownia. But in the project, we promised to work on less, but we increase in the implementation. Let's move to the next. So if we sum up everything, we can see that we have more than promised case studies. At the end of this year, we're going to be able to compare the common case studies, the ones that they have common perennial crops, and moreover, we can compare the rotation of the annuals. And of course, with all of them, we try to develop some business model, and for selected case studies, we are going to develop a business plan, consider the end uses. In this webinar, we are not saying a lot about the uses, but imagine that from each type of crops, we're going to develop different end products. For instance, for guayuli, we develop tires and gloves. From oilseeds, we have a wide range of bio-based products like pelargonic acid, match films, etc. So we try to use all the producing biomass, and the remaining they use it for biodiversity, for bioenergy production. And with this, I'm going to close my presentation. So Mauricio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Effie. Very thorough introduction to the project and to the case studies. So with these two presentations, you learned that we have two big assets in this project. We have more than two big assets, but these two that you discovered today are really important. One is the detailed mapping of the marginal land availability and the future extension of marginal lands across Europe. And the other one is the case studies that we are running across Europe in very diverse conditions, very diverse environmental and soil conditions, and with different crops and different cropping systems. These are generating really a wealth of results that we are putting together in these months. The project will end in 1 year from now. We also have another component, a very important component of this project, which is the downstream processing of the feedstock that we get from these case studies for the bio-based products. But you will hear about this in upcoming webinars. Now it's time to delve into one of the most exciting aspects that we have related to the agronomic value component of the project, which is the relation with biodiversity. You have seen that this integrated cropping, innovative cropping system with industrial crops across Europe, they are in challenging agroecosystems. So Jenny Lazebnik will be our next speaker. She will present the current activities and results of our biodiversity assessment across our case studies. So Jenny, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my name's Jenny, and as if you mentioned, there's many case studies, locations, and for 3 of those case study locations, we've had the opportunity to look at insect biodiversity and how the insect biodiversity changes across cropping systems. So in the cropping systems that in the case studies that they were working on, perennial crops in strip intercropping systems compared with monocultural systems in those countries. And the countries that we specifically looked at were case studies in Spain, in Italy, and in Serbia. And so just to begin my presentation, I know there's a varied audience here, so I just wanted to start with a bit about why we even look at insect biodiversity. So insect biodiversity is key, actually, because it tells a lot about the ecosystem. It's very important to pollinate crops, for example, control pests, how organic matter gets decomposed. Many of this has to do with the insect communities. So insects are a very sensitive indicator also about how farming practices and land use affect ecosystems in general. So it's a really great indicator to check. When insect biodiversity declines, it's again a sign that it could be degradation of the ecosystem functioning, or that the resilience of the ecosystem is under stress. So when we monitor the insect biodiversity, we learn how these different cropping systems may influence the ecological balance. So what we were interested in the systems that from MIDAS, we had these 3 case study sites, as you can see in the where the little colored arrows go. We had one in Spain, Soria, Bologna, Italy, and Novi Sad, Serbia. We were interested in understanding how these cropping systems in strip intercropping versus the conventional system in that country, how do they shape the communities, and how they vary across countries and the different types of marginality. So each site had its own tests. And how did we do this? Well, of course, we already heard in the previous presentation all of the different kinds of crops included in the strip intercropping. So we had safflower and crambe, hemp, melilotus, lavender, white mustard, sorghum, castor. Those are all, not all in all of the sites, but a combination of each of these were in each 3 sites. And then as a comparator, monoculture or the conventional agriculture comparator, we had alfalfa in Italy, maize or wheat in Spain, and in Serbia there was maize. So alongside the strip intercropping system, not too far from each of these sites were these conventional cropping systems. And in order to check the insect biodiversity, we employed several different methodologies. So because no single method can represent an entire insect community, we combine different trap types. So for example, malaise traps are the ones here on the left. For example, it's like a tent where the insect comes in, hits one of the walls, and flies up into the container, and then it gets trapped inside of the container, which is very easy to collect later. So that's for flying insect catches that are not necessarily on top of the vegetation, but around and flying around the vegetation. Pitfall traps, of course, for the ground dwellers, and sweep net catch. So someone has to go around and sweep with a conventional insect net and check what's on the vegetation, for example. And we also measured or counted and identified flowers. So flowers are about resource availability. So insects, of course, are dependent on resources such as flowers. So these are also really interesting to see how the presence of flowers influences also the communities of insects in the area. So that's how we collected insects. Our study design, so we have here on the left-hand side, from 2023 to 2024, we had a single point of collection for 1 week of collection. And we had, you can see where we placed a malaise trap, where we placed the sweep and flower count transect. So we had a transect that went across the entire strip intercropping field. And then we had that across 2 fields, for example. And we also had pitfall traps measured where you see the X's. And we noticed, this is interesting. You have a whole week of collection and quite a lot of samples. However, we noticed that we sometimes missed in that week the peak flowering of the different strip intercropping crops that were chosen in each field. So in this case, we modified the study design for 2025 to include collection points at different flowering times of the different strip crops. So then we would catch more of the range of the diversity in our experiments. So what kind of data do you collect from that? We got, of course, biomass, but not the plant biomass, but the insect biomass. We collected eDNA. So with the species that were collected, this was identified using eDNA techniques down to species level for each of the 3 trapping types. And of course, we had the flower identification and the counts of the flowers. So now I'm going to just show a few different kinds of results just to show types of results that we can see during these experiments. And for example, for the flowers, we were talking about resource availability. So flowers are, you would think that there are more flowers at strip intercropping sites, and that is not always the case. So for example, in Spain, in 2024, that was the case. We had quite a few more flowers present on the strip intercropping sites than and the wheat site. That's not that strange. Wheat doesn't have very many flowers, and also not that many weeds in that field to account for any of the flowers. So the flowers that were there were all of the flowering weeds or non-wheat species, basically. However, when you look at another one, for example, in 2023, we had during an alfalfa bloom in Italy, we had tons of alfalfa flowers, whereas in the strip intercropping sites, tons of flowers as well, already 9,000, but that's much less than in the conventional crop. So you never know which one will have more, and it's not necessarily the intercropping field. However, again, in the Italian site, later on or earlier on in the season, when the first cut of alfalfa was done, there were absolutely no flowers. This is what the field looked like, completely mowed. However, there was many more in the strip intercropping field early in the season. So it is really dependent on what the site looks like at which point in the season, whether there are more flowers at strip intercropping sites or at the monocultural sites. So when we get into insect biodiversity, one of the important things are number of taxa. So this is how many, so taxa we look at in general here, we have on the right kind of the order or taxa of insects. So for example, flies, beetles, millipedes, spiders, those are all given a color. And you can see how many different types of species are present in each of the different regions. So we have Serbia, Italy, and Spain, both intercropping and monocultural sites. You can see it's quite consistent in this case for SweepNet results that there are more species or more numbers of species on the intercropping sites than on the monocultural sites. So, and this is from the collection in 2023. So yeah, that's quite promising. In 2024, we had similar results in Serbia and Italy. We had, for example, slightly more species, more numbers of species in the intercropping sites and the monocultural sites. So this is again regardless of the conditions regardless of the marginality conditions and the cropping system type. So that's also quite a interesting result. And in 2025, our results are coming soon, and we will have more, a wider range of dates to look at as well when it comes to the field season. Rather than have one time point, we'll have several more. However, what's important is not necessarily only the number of taxa, but the general community infrastructure. So how does the communities change at the different sites? And here you can see that at each country. So this is a way of doing an analysis which looks at how similar the species are to each other at the different sites. And you can see here where how I have different colors here. And these points on the MDS graph, they show how closely related the communities are to each other. So you can see that the Spanish sites, regardless of whether it was a strip intercropping insect community or a traditional cropping field, the insects in Spain were quite clustered together. The insects near Serbia were also clustered together. The insect communities of Italy were also clustered together. So that really shows that each country has a unique species composition of insect species composition. So this also has a lot to do with the environmental conditions in the area, the marginality conditions, just that it's a different ecozone. So just to wrap up a bit, what we learned from some of these results already, we have each condition has its own marginality and insect community, which is unique. And in the cropping system does matter. Strip intercropping often supports higher insect richness and more functional groups, and especially, of course, during flowering time. We measured in the first years always during safflower flowering time. So in that case, sometimes the monoculture next door was either early or late flowering. So hopefully in the next system, we'll catch that a bit differently. We'll have several moments of comparisons. And just like I said, these time points matter. So when you compare, it really does matter how many flowers are available, and what the insect communities look like at different times is something that we are looking into this year as well. And what does it all mean? Well, insects respond not only to the crop type, but also the habitat complexity and resource continuity. The strip intercropping increases the complexity, which creates a mosaic of microhabitats for these taxa and functional groups. And because there is strong regional variability, sometimes biodiversity strategies need to be adapted. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, especially with the different marginality conditions. It doesn't always work. And we see this back in some of the results that are, I showed the sweep net results, but this isn't always the case, for example, for the pitfall trap results. So it depends on what kind of, it depends on the landscape, how biodiversity strategies could work in each different location. But why this matters? Well, for ecologists, it's really interesting to use multiple trap types and sampling times to get a true idea of the insect communities. For farmers, of course, it's interesting to show how pollinators and a range of different insects and natural enemies can be beneficial with this cropping system, which also makes use of marginal lands. For policymakers, it's interesting that you can combine biodiversity goals with bio-based production systems. And in general, diversifying crops and having a complex ecosystem can integrate biodiversity into productive farming. So thank you very much. That was basically, thank you also to the whole MIDAS project, which allowed us to do and conduct these experiments and get these nice results. So.
And thanks to you, Jenny, for this very, very interesting presentation. And I really liked how you framed the key take-home messages for the different type of audience or let's say target audience. Good. So this is what you've listened to so far is 3 presentations about MIDAS, about the project by 3 different partners. It's now time to extend the discussion with experts in the sector, but not from the project. Meanwhile, I see there are a few questions in the question and answer panel. We can probably address them later after this round of next quick presentation and pitches. And I would like to introduce our panelists. And I would like to ask our panelists, thank you, Jenny, again. And I would like to ask our panelists, Laura Bazzi and Julio Roman Vasquez and Michael Glemnitz to open the webcam. Of course, our speakers, our other speakers, feel free to join the discussion. We will start with short introductions by each one of these panelists, and then we can probably discuss all together about the results. So the first one will be Laura Bazzi from company 3B. So Laura, please tell us about your company, what you're doing, and we would like to know from you how you see especially these results on biodiversity and these innovative cropping systems such as intercropping, if you think that how they relate to your activities and how this could be taken up by a company like yours. Thank you.
Yeah, with pleasure. Thank you very much, Maurizio, and Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today and to learn more about your projects, your case studies, and share insights on such a timely and forward-looking topic. Hopefully the slides are going to work. Okay, perfect. My name is Laura, and I work as a biodiversity strategist at 3B, an Italian nature tech company that since 2017 has been specializing in developing innovative technologies to monitor biodiversity, to disseminate its value, and support companies in their environmental regeneration projects. This year, 3B has also launched its division Ex Natura, scientific division Ex Natura, and the main focus of this division is to provide an environmental platform to implement a comprehensive system of for satellite and on-site assessment and monitoring of biodiversity. And more importantly, Ex Natura was also founded with a 2.3 million grant by the European Innovation Council for developing a full roadmap for the creation of biodiversity credits. Why so? Mostly to assess companies' biodiversity footprint, while also enabling the design and implementation of regeneration projects that generate a certified biodiversity credit. But let's go quickly through our approach. And so how does the Ex Natura approach work in practice? Well, all of this can be translated into a very simple, I would say, complementary four-step pathway that starts with the assessment phase. Here, we try to focus as much as possible on mapping and evaluating the site's biodiversity status remotely. We look, for example, at different types of indicators like mean species abundance, land use, aridity index, protected areas. And this step helps us understanding the current condition of the site that we want to monitor and try to identify what needs to be done next. So what needs to be improved and protected. Once we build a clear biodiversity baseline, we move on to the strategy design. And as you may guess from the name itself, this is where the regeneration approach starts to be recognized. So we start setting targets, we run scenarios, simulations, we prioritize interventions. And the strategy can be developed through a portfolio level, so by considering different sites located in different areas, but it can also be tailored with site-specific action plans. And once we're done with the strategy part, we moved on to the regeneration phase. And this is definitely one of the main pillars of 3B as a company. This is where planning fully becomes to action. And we provide, for example, support in planting native nectar-rich species, establishing tree clusters, or, for example, creating ecological corridors. And last but not least, the final step is, of course, the monitoring phase, where all the measurements come into one focus. So this is definitely a critical phase because it ensures transparency and accountability to the overall project and strategy. We use, as I mentioned before, a different combination of technologies, for example, IoT biometric sensors that can track the abundance of wild pollinators in one area, to birds and mammals. And then we move to satellite imagery, AI models, and even environmental ADNA for species-supported identification. And we do all of this with the idea that we want to keep track of the real changes and evolution of biodiversity over time. And in this way, we ensure that every action taken is not just done, but it can be measured, verified, and made visible. I will quickly move to the next slide. So this is just like a very brief slide. It's just to conclude, but these are just like a few example, like concrete figures of our scientific partners. We collaborate directly with the European Space Agency and with different university hubs and research centers. To go quickly to Maurizio, your question. Well, we truly believe that Ex Natura and 3B in general could be deeply connected to the idea of making regenerative agriculture practices a key ally in biodiversity conservation. And could be definitely a key ally in your research projects and key results, mostly because 3B's technology is very versatile, both in terms of sensor types and the functions they serve. And Jenny was earlier mentioning that one of like the main burdens sometimes is like time points. And so in order to track and have an overview on species community, it's crucial to get a field analysis and all of this. And Ex Natura could help guiding you through and collecting all the data from transects and all the field work that you've done. So with an integration between on-the-ground monitoring tools, which are non-invasive and don't require transects or complex fieldwork setups, to satellite-based observation, which is especially valuable when dealing with sites that can be remotely positioned and would be otherwise very difficult to reach and cover manually. Yeah, so I don't know if I covered all.
Yes, sure.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I really hope that this can be the start of a further collaboration, and I see that there are many potential fields of collaboration.
Yeah. Thank you.
For the
you
future. Thank you. So
you.
I would like now to invite Julio Roman Vasquez from the European Conservation Agriculture Federation. Julio, are you there?
Yes,
Julio?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. So thank you for joining us. Can you please briefly introduce yourself and ECAF? And the question I would like to ask you is, from the farmer's perspective, how do these farming practices, how do you see these farming innovative cropping systems, agroforestry, intercropping, how can these be scaled up and replicated? And what are the challenges, of course?
Yeah,
we are sure that there are challenges.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to stay here and to present not only CAF, also the point of view of our organization and also the farmers that we represent. Well, I'm Julio Roman. I'm agricultural engineer, and I'm currently the executive director of ECAF. ECAF is the European Conservation Agricultural Federation. ECAF is a non-profit association. It's formed by 19 national associations, so we are considered as an NGO. So our main objective or our mission is to encourage the adoption of the principle of conservation agriculture across Europe in the agricultural land. It's important to know what's the concept of conservation agriculture, because it's not a kind of practice. It's a full system based on 3 principles. And well, let me say this the same that regenerative agriculture more or less is more or less the same, because the conservation agriculture is based on 3 principles: minimum soil disturbance. It's mean disturb the soil as minimum, only to place the seed on the soil. It's not minimum tillage, it's only no tillage or direct seeding, and strip till, or the strip cropping is another kind of a version of conservation agriculture. Keep the soil or maintain the soil covered during all the season, and diversification of species on the soil, on the land. That's the three core principles also for regenerative agriculture. So that's why we always say that regenerative agriculture and conservation agriculture is more or less the same. We have some differences in terms of, because regenerative agriculture introduce livestock in case if possible, and keep this living roots in the soils, but depending on the edapoclimatic conditions. So the core principles of regenerative agriculture is the same principle of conservation agriculture. And what are our main activities? As we are a non-profit organization, we promote all kinds of activities. We promote the adoption of conservation agriculture in Europe by knowledge transfer, knowledge exchange, by conferences, workshops, demonstration farms, field days, other kind of activities that can help farmers to reduce this lack of knowledge in terms of sustainable practices based on the principles of conservation agriculture. We collaborate and we participate in a lot of projects based on agriculture, sustainable agriculture, Life Horizon, different programs. We also try to engage policymakers in this kind of activities. We do policy advocacy, not policy lobby. We try to identify, because we try to advise policymakers with the support of science, always supported by science. And the last main activity that we promote is the creation of farmers network, a kind of communities of farmers, that practitioners on conservation agriculture, that can help each other and exchange all the knowledge that they are getting from their own farms. So during these 25 years that we are working on that, we know that agriculture in Europe has facing a lot of challenges. One of these is how to restore marginal lands. And as you said, the future is integrate these principles. That's why within that it's important introduce these new crops and also these new practices. But we have the farmer perspective is quite reluctant to introduce this crop, mainly because sometimes when we try to reach them with a lot of science, but at the end, farming is a business. So we need to provide farmers the incomes and cost and the profitability of the adoption of this new technology, these initiatives, these new crops. And at the end, if they obtain some results, I'm sure that all of them move to this new type of agriculture. And also we need also to take in mind that all this change is a medium long term, and farmers sometimes need short-term results. And we have to engage or involve pioneers in our projects, and like MIDAS. This case studies is clear. It's a nice way to demonstrate farmers that they have a lot of tools and resources that they can apply into their farms. but it's necessary to introduce the profitability and the economic results. That's my, I don't know if I addressed your question, but we have a lot of challenges, but the future from we have a light in the future, because most of the farmers not are aware that they need to change something, because we are facing some challenges in terms of climate change, soil matter, soil organic matter decrease, and also they need to obtain some results.
Thank you, Julio. And yeah, we share your views about the challenges of introducing these innovative solutions mainstream in the farming community. Thank you. So our third expert, I would like to invite Michael Glemnitz from from Leibniz Center for Agricultural Landscape and Research. And he is also partner in our sister project Marginal, so another Horizon project funded under the same call, which is running similar activities, but with different approach. So I think they also have activities related to biodiversity, and we really look forward to understanding where you're up to with your research and where you see similarities and synergies between the two projects. So, Michael, the floor is yours.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity to present our approach from the Margin project here. As you know, this is sister of MIDAS project. Next slide, please. Please go to the end of the animation. So similar to MIDAS, one special feature of the Marginal project is that we deal with a wide range of marginality factors and very different landscape settings. We have only 5 use cases in Europe and 2 out of Europe use cases in Argentina and in South Africa. As you see on the left side, we have a very different, very long list of marginality factors and even of new ideas for cropping solutions. We are united by the question of whether and how innovative site-adapted new land use systems contribute to the promotion of biodiversity. And to this end, we have developed a methodological approach with a standardized structure, but with regionally adapted indicators and target parameters. Next slide, please. We don't have the opportunity to do our own field experiments and trials since we don't have any replications and we have no similar solutions in the different UCs. So we focus more on expert impact analysis. So we developed in a co-design process together with regional partners. We developed a set of regionally adapted indicators and exam services, which is summarized here in our RABIS indicator system, which maybe is one of the biggest difference to the MIDAS system is that we, from the beginning on, focus on multiple trophic levels, so not on one group in particular. For each of the, so we selected for every UC about 5 to 15 single indicator species, and for each of the species we mirror its habitat requirements with a range of habitat qualities provided by the new crops and the management systems. We believe that one of the advantages of this approach is that we can use the results at the end to better identify the factors that maybe need to be further adjustments or improvements at the end. And very, very important for us is that we use multiple reference systems consisting out of previous land use and abundant land. And we think this is important later on for the conclusions. Next slide, please. The whole work is accompanied by a simple monitoring, which parameters you can see here. And we collect data only to describe the habitat quality of the new crops and management systems. And we use the data as inputs for our impact analysis. Next slide, please. The landscape effects of the new innovative crops and management systems only manifest themselves in landscapes when the landscape context and the frequency, spatial configuration, and other aspects of the new land use systems or management systems are taken into account. To assess this, we conduct a kind of scenario analysis for selected ecosystems. You can see here on the top, pollination and carbon sequestration. For selected and use them in an investor model to calculate the outcomes at a landscape scale. Here you see examples from the German UC where we are thinking and speaking about the introduction of a paludi crop on peatland. So this was a short introduction of our approach, which is partly maybe different or to the approaches of MIDAS, but I see also some linkages between the both projects. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Michael. And in the last year of both projects, we hope that we can put together, join the forces to give common messages to our common target audience. Thank you. So we've come with this presentation to the end of our agenda, and it's now time to address some of the questions I see in the question and answer panel. A couple of questions on the agronomic aspect, and I think Effie, you are the one that could reply. We have question about the rotation. Do we apply rotation on this strip cropping in our test, and the use beside of the products of the feedstock from the biomass, what it is used for. Here the question is what we do besides biofuel. Actually, this project doesn't produce biofuel, but multiple other projects. So Effie, can you say something about the rotation?
About the rotation, as I told you, in the borders, let's say, of the field, we put the perennial crops, woody species, grasses, shrubs, whatever. And in between, we rotate 2 to 3 annual crops. Each partner decide which it will be this crop according to the pedoclimatic condition and according to the interest from the farmers, because we try more or less to present the farmers something that can apply in the future, because as you remember, MIDAS is a project with TRL 6 to 7, so means that should be more applicable with the farmers. So every year we have to rotate, and to the area, let's say that we used to grow safflower, we put another crop. So by the end of this year, we have a full set of data, including the rotation. About the products, in one of my slides, I present which are the main markets per group of crops. So from oilseeds, we can take many different products with emphasis on match film, pelargonic acid, other biolubricants, and the feedstock, the main feedstock, let's say, the stalks, after the harvesting of the seeds, we use it for particle boards, and of course, the last portion will go to bioenergy. But here emphasis is on high value products. So from each crop, we try to take 1 or 2 valuable products, and the remainings, they go for bioenergy. I don't know if I answered your question, but if you go to our website, you can find a graph and you can see how the products is organized according to the group of crops.
Yes, you replied. Thank you. Stay there, because I think we also have another question. We have 2 questions by Olivier Dubois. Hello, Olivier. One has been addressed now by Berien on the chat. The other one is about the business case. The business case, what we are doing in MIDAS for the business case of these crops.
So I will answer first
Yes.
the business case. So what we are doing now, we're screening all the case studies that we have. Each field, let's say, includes 4 to 5 crops. Each crop has different application, and we try to select from the combination that can be 100 at the moment. We screen to 15, and from 15, we're going to evaluate in very detail, let's say, between 3 and 5. We put a minimum of 3, and we can come up to 5. At the same time, we're going to develop some business models, like a template that is available on the website to see how to calculate if something is profitable or not. But now we're going to do exactly this. We are exactly at this stage to screen up which value chains has the highest potential. And of course, highest potential means that has some economic viability. So it's if it's important for the farmer to grow this kind of crops.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for taking these questions. I don't see any other questions in the chat window. So do the speakers and the panelists have any other comments or questions? We have time, a few minutes for discussion.
Can I ask you something, Maurizio?
Yes.
Somehow in the beginning of the webinar, I saw something about castor bean. Somehow,
Yes,
but
there was
then
something
I lost it. What I couldn't present in detail is that, especially for the castor bean, we are doing a lot of things. So we try to organize its value chains with emphasis to spray the cultivation at the end of the growing season with pelargonic acid. Pelargonic acid is a bioherbicide that is produced by Novamont. And now we are doing exactly this kind of trials in several parts of Italy and Spain. We set up trials and we just spray with this herbicide. And at the same time, we try to organize the whole value chains, because one big issue for castor bean is the mechanical harvest. It's not yet solved. So, and at the same time, castor bean is very important crop in terms of the end application. I would like to ask you, the person that asked the question on the chat, to write me directly, because especially for castor bean, we are very interested to improve the value chains.
I think I know him from the UBC. It's Jess. We have it in our mailing list. I will put you in contact after. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the other speakers? If not, this is my last slide, and I would like to invite you to our next webinar, because today is the first of a series of webinars that we are rolling out to present the results of the project. So this is the last year of the project. We are now collecting and putting together the results. We will need some time to analyze the results ourselves and identify the storyline, the storyline, the common ground among the results. So the next year will be dedicated to outreach activities and sharing the results with the community of our target audience, including the farmers, including the farming community, including the Biobased community, policymakers, regulators, and so on. The next webinar will be on the 12th of November afternoon, and it will be about guaiuli value chains in Spain and in France. The agenda is being shaped now, but you can already sign in to this webinar by going either on the website or scanning this QR code, and we will reach out to you with the complete agenda in the next few days. Thanks again to all the participants for today. We were more than 100 participants. We will share the slides and the recording very soon with you all, and they will be available on the website. Thanks again also to the speakers, and see you next time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Maurizio.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you a
Bye.
lot.
Bye.
Bye.